She was young, talented, and beloved by many. Ellie Weik led a seemingly ordinary life until one man turned her days into a living nightmare. Stalking, threats, disappearance, and a chilling discovery that shook the peaceful town to its core. Who could commit such a crime? And why were her cries for help left unheard? This story will leave no heart untouched. Ellie Weik was a young woman brimming with life and vitality. Born in the quiet suburb of Mason, Ohio, she stood out for her kindness and sociable nature. At just 23, Ellie had already earned a degree in graphic design and embarked on a promising career with a small company. Her friends described her as a creative soul, passionate about art, music, and photography. She adored nature walks, often capturing breathtaking shots of local landscapes, which she shared on her social media. Ellie's family was a cornerstone of her life. Her parents supported her every endeavor, while her younger sister admired her as a role model. Ellie was also deeply engaged in her community, frequently participating in charity events and lending a hand in local volunteer projects. But behind her bright demeanor lay a battle with a relentless stalker. For nearly a year, Ellie endured unwanted attention from Michael Strauss, a man she had met at a local event. Michael persistently sought to force a connection, sending her messages, appearing at places she frequented, and reacting with hostility when rebuffed. Despite this, Ellie tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy, hoping the ordeal would eventually end. On July 2, 2019, the day of Ellie's disappearance began like any other. That morning, she met a friend at a cafe before heading out for a stroll in a local park. She was last seen around 4 p.m., walking in the direction of her home. After that, Ellie vanished without a trace. Her phone went silent, raising alarm among her loved ones. When Ellie failed to return that evening, her family immediately began searching for her. Calls to friends and acquaintances, social media posts, and even local searches yielded no clues. There was no sign of her whereabouts. That night, Ellie's parents filed a missing person report with the police. Thus began a case that would shake the tight-knit community of Mason and grow into one of the most harrowing criminal investigations in the state's history. After Ellie's family filed the missing person report, the police wasted no time launching an investigation. Their first step was to interview her family and friends. They learned that Ellie had made no plans to leave town or meet anyone on the day she vanished. Phone records revealed that her last call had been to a friend, placed roughly an hour before she went missing. A massive search effort was soon underway. Friends, volunteers, and police officers combed through local parks, wooded areas, and abandoned buildings, focusing on places Ellie frequented. The search continued for several days but yielded no clues. Meanwhile, investigators began scrutinizing individuals who might have been connected to her disappearance. Among the first suspects was Michael Strauss, whose name surfaced during interviews with Ellie's loved ones. They described his persistent stalking, menacing messages, and threats. When questioned, Michael denied any involvement, insisting he hadn't seen Ellie that day. However, his behavior aroused suspicion. On the 7th day after Ellie's disappearance, police reviewed footage from surveillance cameras in the park. One recording showed Ellie walking along a trail, followed minutes later by a man resembling Michael Strauss. This footage marked the first crucial breakthrough in the case. The public followed the investigation closely. Social media posts about Ellie's disappearance spread rapidly, with posters of her photograph plastered across the town. Local news outlets provided daily updates, and the community rallied to support her family. Yet, as the days passed with no word of Ellie, anxiety and despair deepened. 2 weeks after Ellie vanished, tragedy struck. A farmer working in a field near a dense wooded area made a grim discovery: human remains. Investigators soon confirmed they belonged to Ellie Weik. Her body had been found hidden in thick underbrush, roughly 10 kilometers from where she was last seen. At the site, police uncovered critical evidence: fragments of clothing and signs of a struggle. Forensic analysis determined that Ellie had died from asphyxiation, and injuries on her body indicated foul play. This shocking discovery altered the trajectory of the investigation, presenting the detectives with an urgent mission to identify and bring the perpetrator to justice. The discovery of Ellie Weik's body sent shockwaves through the community. The town of Mason, once considered a haven of safety, was now gripped by a mix of grief and unease. For Ellie's family, the news was the confirmation of their worst fears, ones they had desperately tried to dismiss during the 2 agonizing weeks of searching. The police immediately cordoned off the site where Ellie's remains were found, ensuring the preservation of all potential evidence. Forensic experts meticulously examined the area, documenting every small detail: fragments of fabric, potential footprints, fibers, and traces of soil. These objects became the starting point for building a forensic timeline. Identification of the remains was expedited by personal belongings found nearby. DNA testing later confirmed the body as Ellie's. Her family was informed as soon as the process was complete, a devastating moment for them, yet they chose to cooperate fully with the police in their pursuit of justice. The autopsy report provided detectives with crucial insights. Ellie's cause of death was asphyxiation, with distinct marks on her neck suggesting the use of a belt or similar object. Scratches and bruises on her body indicated a desperate struggle against her attacker. Experts concluded that she had been killed within hours of her disappearance, making it clear she had been murdered the same day she was last seen. The evidence collected at the crime scene raised more questions than answers. Some items, such as fragments of fabric, did not belong to Ellie, hinting at the involvement of a third party or the presence of witnesses. A strand of long, dark hair found near her body was sent for DNA analysis, with the hope of linking it to a suspect. Michael Strauss remained a primary suspect, with mounting testimony regarding his stalking and threatening behavior toward Ellie. During another interrogation, Michael again denied involvement, claiming he had been at home on the day of Ellie's disappearance. However, his alibi could not be fully corroborated. Surveillance footage from the park, showing a man resembling Michael following Ellie, added to the suspicion surrounding him. A breakthrough came when the DNA from the hair found at the scene matched Michael Strauss. This discovery was a significant step forward in the investigation. Still, detectives knew they needed more evidence to secure an arrest. Surveillance on Michael intensified as the police awaited further leads or mistakes that could tie him definitively to the crime. Simultaneously, investigators explored other possibilities. Neighbors and potential witnesses were interviewed, though much of the case remained shrouded in uncertainty. Nevertheless, a clear strategy emerged: to amass irrefutable evidence, bring Ellie's killer to justice, and ensure the community could begin to heal from this horrific tragedy. After the discovery of Ellie Weik's body, the investigation honed in on gathering irrefutable evidence against the prime suspect Michael Strauss. Detectives meticulously reconstructed his movements on the day of Ellie's disappearance. Cellular data analysis revealed that Michael's phone had been in the vicinity of the park where Ellie was last seen and later via the wooded area where her body was found. Meanwhile, forensic experts examined the evidence collected at the crime scene. Fibers discovered on Ellie's clothing matched the upholstery of Michael's car seats, providing a crucial link. Additionally, soil particles found on the floor mats of Michael's vehicle were identical to samples from the forested area where Ellie's body was discovered. Despite the mounting circumstantial evidence, investigators continued to solidify their case. A search warrant for Michael's home revealed chilling findings: notebooks containing entries about Ellie, photographs he had taken while stalking her, and a belt with a damaged buckle. Forensic analysis later confirmed that this belt matched the marks found on Ellie's neck, potentially identifying it as the murder weapon. Michael Strauss was arrested on July 25, 2019. His apprehension marked a turning point in the case, eliciting mixed reactions from the community. While many residents felt a sense of relief, Michael's family vehemently denied his guilt, claiming the police had targeted him as an easy scapegoat. During his initial interrogation, Michael remained calm but evasive, continuing to deny any involvement. He insisted that the evidence against him had been fabricated. However, the investigation steadily closed in on him with each passing day. A major breakthrough came when police gained access to Michael's digital devices. Analysis of his computer and phone revealed months of troubling online searches, including queries about methods to conceal a body and detailed studies of other high-profile murders. His email history contained dozens of unsent messages to Ellie, some pleading for a meeting, others filled with threats and obsessive remarks. These digital findings became the foundation for formally charging Michael Strauss. The prosecution filed charges of kidnapping, stalking, and premeditated murder. Michael's defense attorney argued that there was no direct evidence tying him to the act of murder itself, but the judge ruled to keep him in custody pending trial. Local media followed the case closely, sparking heated debates within the community. While some were convinced of Michael's guilt, others questioned the reliability of the evidence. For Ellie's family, his arrest represented a step toward justice, though the looming trial promised a long and painful battle ahead. The trial of Michael Strauss began in October 2019 and immediately drew widespread public attention. The courtroom was packed with journalists, community members, and Ellie Weik's friends. Her family attended every session, determined not to miss a single detail. For them, this was not only a quest for justice but also an effort to honor Ellie's memory and restore her dignity. The prosecution presented a compelling case, building on a foundation of substantial evidence. Cell phone data placed Michael in locations directly tied to Ellie's disappearance and murder. Forensic experts meticulously detailed the fibers, soil traces, and microscopic particles found in Michael's car, all matching samples taken from the crime scene. Prosecutors also focused on Michael's psychological fixation on Ellie. Emails and messages he had sent her were read aloud in court. One message, sent shortly before her disappearance, contained a chilling threat: "If you don't respond, I'll come myself, and then you'll see what I'm capable of." This statement became a cornerstone of the prosecution's argument, illustrating his premeditated intent. Witnesses for the prosecution included Ellie's friends, who testified about her fear of Michael, as well as forensic experts who linked the evidence to the defendant. Neighbors of Michael added to the damning testimony, recalling his suspicious behavior on the day of Ellie's disappearance. They described seeing him return home visibly agitated and meticulously cleaning his car the following day. The defense sought to cast doubt on the evidence, arguing that much of it was circumstantial. Michael's attorney claimed the fibers and soil could have been transferred accidentally and that cell phone data only proved his presence near the park, not his involvement in the crime. The defense also emphasized the lack of eyewitnesses directly connecting Michael to the murder. The trial's pivotal moment came with the DNA evidence. Genetic analysis of the hair found at the crime scene and skin cells on the belt used to strangle Ellie conclusively identified Michael Strauss as the perpetrator. The defense challenged the validity of the DNA results, alleging potential errors in the lab's procedures, but the court dismissed these claims as unfounded. Defense witnesses failed to sway the jury, and Michael himself declined to testify, invoking his Fifth Amendment right. This decision sparked mixed reactions. The prosecution framed it as a tacit admission of guilt, while the defense argued it was a strategic move to avoid missteps under intense scrutiny. The trial spanned 6 weeks, during which more than 20 witnesses were called and a multitude of evidence was presented. Closing arguments were emotionally charged. The prosecutor called for the maximum penalty, arguing that Michael's actions were cold-blooded and deliberate. The defense maintained that the evidence was insufficient to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict. Michael Strauss was found guilty of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and stalking. Following the verdict, the judge scheduled a sentencing hearing. Ellie Weik's family awaited justice, knowing that no punishment could ever bring their daughter back. The people of Mason, shaken by the horrific crime that had shattered their tranquil town, hoped for a sentence that would reflect the severity of the act and provide a sense of closure. During the hearing, the prosecution sought the harshest punishment: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The prosecutor underscored the calculated nature of Michael Strauss's actions, the terror he had inflicted on Ellie during months of stalking, and the irrevocable loss her family suffered. Ellie Weik was robbed of her right to live, dream, and find happiness. The defendant must be held fully accountable for his actions, the prosecutor declared. In delivering the sentence, the judge echoed the prosecution's arguments, condemning Michael's cold-blooded disregard for human life. Michael Strauss was sentenced to life without parole, with additional sentences for kidnapping and stalking further reinforcing the gravity of his punishment. The courtroom reaction was intense. Ellie's family wept, holding on to one another as they processed a mixture of grief and relief. While they found solace in the fact that justice had been served, their loss remained immeasurable. Michael, on the other hand, maintained his emotionless demeanor, a stoic expression that had persisted throughout the trial. The community welcomed the sentence with a sense of satisfaction. Messages of support for the Weik family flooded social media, praising the efforts of the police and prosecution. However, the case also sparked broader discussions about how such a tragedy might have been prevented. Ellie Weik's story drew attention to the pervasive issue of stalking. Many highlighted the inadequacies in the existing system designed to protect victims. Ellie's family, determined to make a difference, launched a campaign advocating for changes to Ohio's laws. They pushed for harsher penalties for stalking, better protective measures for victims, and streamlined processes for obtaining restraining orders. Months after the trial concluded, Ohio passed a legislative amendment known as Ellie's Law. The law increased penalties for stalking and expanded victims' rights to secure legal protection. For Ellie's family, the law represented a step toward ensuring that no other family would have to endure the same heartbreak. Michael Strauss's fate was sealed, but Ellie Weik's legacy continued to resonate. Her story became a lasting reminder for the residents of Mason, a stark warning of the dangers of unchecked stalking and a testament to the power of a community united in the pursuit of safety and justice. After the trial concluded, Ellie Weik's family and friends devoted themselves to preserving her memory. Through events and projects, they sought not only to honor her life but also to raise awareness about the dangers of stalking and violence. In June 2020, exactly 1 year after Ellie's disappearance, a memorial was installed in the park where she was last seen. A small marble plaque bore her portrait alongside the inscription, "In memory of a radiant soul who will forever remain in our hearts." May her story inspire us to protect one another. The memorial became a place of quiet reflection, often adorned with flowers and candles left by loved ones and strangers moved by her story. Ellie's family also established a charitable foundation in her name. The Ellie Weik Memorial Foundation provided support to victims of stalking, offering legal aid, counseling, and financial assistance. The foundation was funded through crowdfunding efforts and annual events, including marathons, auctions, and benefit concerts. At the college where Ellie had studied, a scholarship for graphic design students was created in her honor. This scholarship supported talented young artists who shared Ellie's passion for creativity. Each year, during the scholarship award ceremony, Ellie's parents gave heartfelt speeches about her life, dreams, and the indelible impact she had on those around her. Ellie's story resonated across the nation. Her name became synonymous with legislative changes aimed at combating stalking. Documentaries, podcasts, and articles chronicled her case, emphasizing the importance of recognizing early warning signs of danger and seeking help promptly. For Ellie's family, the enactment of Ellie's Law was a bittersweet achievement. They had worked closely with lawmakers and legal experts to shape the legislation. The law introduced harsher penalties for stalking and provided law enforcement with expanded powers to intervene in such cases, ensuring greater protection for victims. Years after the tragedy, the Weik family found the strength to move forward while keeping Ellie's memory alive. They remembered her as a kind and vibrant individual who inspired those around her. Their advocacy efforts led to greater public awareness of violence and a critical need to support victims. Ellie Weik's story became a poignant reminder of how one life can influence the world. Her memory lives on in the hearts of her loved ones, in the laws that now protect others, and in every person whose sense of safety and hope was restored through her legacy.